This is the printout that we received from our scientists regarding the danger of a possible black hole and about gravitational shift problems the Earth is experiencing right now. This is the readout we obtained from Jesuit scientists under the direction of Jesuit Rule 13, who are working with us to resolve this problem. Sarah Avery is so fat, scientists classify her as a gas giant. Sarah Avery is so fat, when she walks down the beach, the tide rolls in. Sarah Avery is so fat, finding her vagina would require surgery. Sarah Avery is so fat, her farts set off every car alarm in the city. Sarah Avery is so fat, not even black men will have sex with her. Sarah Avery is so fat, her neighbors called animal control, and the officers took her to SeaWorld. Sarah Avery is so fat, retards can't stop asking why she has extra butts where her vagina should be. Sarah Avery is so fat, sitting around the house means sitting on the house. Sarah Avery is so fat, each crease of her folds has its own ecosystem. Sarah Avery is so fat, whales beach themselves trying to have sex with her. Sarah Avery is so fat, when she goes to Mexico, all the Hispanic women think they've lost weight. Sarah Avery is so fat, freak shows turn her away for being overqualified. Sarah Avery is so fat, each of her butt cheeks has its own zip code. Sarah Avery is so fat, when she gives guys heads, they yell, "Thurr, Thurr, she blows." Sarah Avery is so fat, when she walks up to buffets, they lock the doors and pretend to be closed. Sarah Avery is so fat, midgets stand underneath her for shade. Sarah Avery is so fat, she can't even pull off a fat girl angle shot. Sarah Avery is so fat, her lesbian sister can't find her vagina, so she just licks every fold to make sure she's satisfied. Sarah Avery is so fat, she can't get a job that would require her to leave the house. Sarah Avery is so fat, Captain Ahab keeps calling asking for his leg back. Sarah Avery is so fat, she went to the zoo and an elephant tried to have sex with her. The elephant's penis was too small for such a large and loose vagina. Sarah Avery is so fat, she doesn't have a doctor, she sees a veterinarian. Sarah Avery is so fat, when she flies, they charge her for every seat on the plane. Sarah Avery is so fat, she pees gravy. Peas gravy, Gravy. Sarah Avery is so fat, every time she steps out of the house, she is arrested for indecent exposure. Sarah Avery is so fat, every time she burps, there's an earthquake. Sarah Avery is so fat, her dad only had sex with her because he felt bad. Sarah Avery is so fat, Weight Watchers can't stop watching her. Sarah Avery is so fat, she was pulled over and arrested for carrying 10 pounds of crack. Sarah Avery is so fat, wringing out her folds would end the drought in California. Sarah Avery is so fat, walruses try to compete with her for mates. Sarah Avery is so fat, she takes selfies with Google Earth. Sarah Avery is so fat, standing in her mom's living room and lifting milk jugs is enough to make her lose weight. Sarah Avery is so fat, she traps stray cats under her folds. Sarah Avery is so fat, a casting call for Ghostbusters once asked her to play the Marshmallow Man. Sarah Avery is so fat, she would actually do it if they paid her only $5. Sarah Avery is so fat, on hot days she begins to melt and grease the sidewalks. Sarah Avery is so fat, chubby chasers become so ashamed they only date date anorexics after looking at her. Sarah Avery is so fat, the only way she could get married is by finding an equally fat gamer who has no use for his penis. Sarah Avery is so fat, human rights activists blame her for world hunger. Sarah Avery is so fat, she makes other fat girls realize how bad fat girls smell. Sarah Avery is so fat, she once hid inside a mattress store by pretending to be a waterbed, a really fat waterbed. Sarah Avery is so fat, she shouldn't be so self-conscious of photos since you can't tell where her face is anyway. Sarah Avery is so fat, Guinness rejected her for fattest woman alive, because she was too fat to be considered a person. Sarah Avery is so fat, conspiracy theorists use her footprints as evidence of Bigfoot. Sarah Avery is so fat, she has to use volcanoes as a toilet. Sarah Avery is so fat, she thinks of skinny girls like Rule 13 as bite-sized. Sarah Avery is so fat, she never has to walk uphill because they always flatten. Sarah Avery is so fat, she gives Arte to life, A-R-T-E to life, and Mad Gastronomer thin privilege. Sarah Avery is so fat, if she ever lost weight, she would just look like a big droopy vagina. Sarah Avery is so fat, when she wears a red t-shirt, small black children follow her around, trying to hit her up for Kool-Aid. Sarah Avery is so fat, she eats from a trough instead of using plates, T-R-O-U-G-H. Sarah Avery is so fat, she can't swim in public pools without getting stuck. Sarah Avery is so fat, the impact of falling on her butt would cause a mass extinction. Sarah Avery is so fat, when she jumps in the ocean, it causes tsunamis. Sarah Avery is so fat, her body is considered a biochemical weapon. You know, she is so massive, scientists needed to create a new unit of mass for her. One Sarah Avery equals 8.37 times 10 to the 12 heifers, or 700 million pounds, which is pretty close to producing a black hole. She is large enough to eat trucks and billboards, but most of her weight is actually condensed. Any scientists who want to assist Rule 13 scientists in trying to prevent a black hole, contact my men at gailsmen, Gailsmen, at yahoo.com, or at gailcordschuler@gmail.com, gailchordschuler@gmail.com, and we will pass on the information to the Jesuit scientists working under Rule 13's direction. Though Rule 13 is a Jesuit, Rule 13 and I became BFF right after we made the treaty to fight the Gale android, so we are working with her on this serious problem. Rule 13 has been very helpful in this matter.